Now we know that a large number of microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, fungi and other pathogens, these are responsible for producing diseases in man as well as animals, even in plants, right? So these microorganisms are collectively called as microbes, and any drug which is designed to destroy these microbes or inhibit the growth and development of these microorganisms, they are called as antimicrobials. So generally antimicrobials are classified into two categories. What are they? They are either antibiotics and the others are antiseptics and disinfectants. So we will be studying this category of drugs, disinfectants. So we will be studying antimicrobials under two headings, that is antibiotics and antiseptics and disinfectants. So these two can be studied together, their action is similar. Similarly antibiotics. So whatever it may be, whether it is an antibiotic, antiseptic or disinfectant, the ultimate action of this particular drug is either to kill the microorganism which is producing the infection or which is creating a problem in the living organism, or to control the growth and development of these microbes. So let us discuss about antibiotics. So what are antibiotics? They are designed They are used for the treatment of infection. So very often you hear the word infection, meaning the presence of microorganisms in these living systems like man or animals produces what is called as pus or pain or boils or something like that, which is called as infection. So the effect produced by the presence of these microorganisms in the body is called as infection. So this infection is treated with this class of drugs which are called as antibiotics, right? And their quality should be that they should be less toxic to the host and more toxic to the invading microbe. So they should have low toxicity. Toxic means poisonous. Low toxicity for the host and higher toxicity for the invading microbe. So earlier these antibiotics were produced from the microorganisms themselves. So they were actually the metabolic products of those particular microorganisms producing the diseases. And but nowadays a large number of antibiotics are produced by chemical synthesis. That is why the definition of antibiotics has changed over the years. The modern definition is antibiotics are a class of drugs which kill or inhibit the growth and development of the microorganism, and they are produced by either completely or partially by chemical synthesis, and they are. So how do you define these antibiotics? They are a class of drugs produced. How are they produced? Either partly or fully, partially or fully by chemical synthesis. That means artificially prepared. Chemical synthesis, and they should be able to kill or inhibit the growth of microorganisms microorganisms. And how do they inhibit or kill these microorganisms? By intervening in their metabolic processes. Metabolism. What is the meaning of this? So you have to design the drugs in such a way that you should be able to synthesize them by chemical analysis, by chemical synthesis, either partially or fully. They should be able to destroy the microorganism or arrest the development of these microorganisms, and they should be able to do that by interfering with the metabolic processes taking place in the microorganisms. That means these drugs will interfere with the metabolic processes taking place in the microorganism. So this is the new definition of antibiotic. So antibiotic is any drug which is able to kill or arrest the development of microorganism by interfering with the metabolic processes taking place in that particular microorganism. Not only that, that particular drug should be able to be synthesized either partially or wholly by chemical synthesis. So that gives us the complete definition of the word antibiotic. And we are already familiar with Alexander Fleming. So he was the person to first come up with an antibiotic. It was an antibacterial fungus called penicillin, and it took him 13 years to isolate, purify and to get sufficient amount for clinical trials. So 13 years of his life he spent in isolating and producing this particular penicillin, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic. So apart from that, the pioneering work was done by a German bacteriologist, that is Paul Ehrlich. So let us spend some time over what work was done by Paul Ehrlich and what was his pioneering work. Now Paul Ehrlich, as I said, was a German bacteriologist, and he observed that, so what is the name? Paul Ehrlich. He was a German bacteriologist. And he was awarded the Nobel Prize for producing a very effective drug for the treatment of syphilis, the disease syphilis. So this is a disease, and the drug that he produced for the first time, the most effective drug for the treatment of this particular disease called syphilis, was Salvarsan. And this was discovered by Paul Ehrlich. And how did he discover this? Basically, he found that what are azo dyes? We are already familiar with what are azo dyes. So these are dyes having the group N double bond N in their structure. So he observed that these azo dyes are selectively absorbed by the tissues in the body. So very selectively this particular dye colors some of the body tissues. So he started searching for chemical compounds with a similar structure. Instead of N double bond N, he tried to design a drug having AS double bond AS in the structure. And to see that this particular newly designed drug could bind to the invading microbe. So just like how the dye is binding to the tissue, this particular drug which he designed by the name of Salvarsan, it could bind to the bacteria or the invading bacterium. Now syphilis is caused by a bacterium called as spirochete. This is the bacterium which is responsible for causing the disease syphilis. So he designed a drug which is similar to the azo dyes, only instead of N double bond N in its structure, it has AS double bond AS. AS is arsenic. So a doubly bonded arsenic atoms, that group is present instead of N double bond N, which is present in the azo dyes. So just like how the dyes bind to the tissue selectively, like that this particular drug, he started searching for these drugs which would bind to the bacteria which are causing that particular disease. And of course, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for discovering this very effective drug used in the treatment of the disease called syphilis. And not only that, he is also responsible for the discovery of the first antibacterial drug, and that is called as Prontosil. So another antibacterial drug was discovered by the same person, Paul Ehrlich, and that was Prontosil. And it is found that this Prontosil inside the body, it is metabolized into the active compound sulfanylamide. And this led to the discovery of what are called as sulfa drugs. Now we use a wide variety of sulfa drugs for the treatment of various diseases. So all this pioneering work was done by this German bacteriologist Paul Ehrlich. So salvarsan drug, which is used in the treatment of syphilis, was first discovered by Paul Ehrlich. It has a structure similar to the azo dyes with AS double bond AS in its structure, and this particular drug, it binds selectively to that invading microbe and it fights against this particular disease that is called as syphilis. And the first antibacterial drug also was discovered by Paul Ehrlich by the name of Prontosil, and inside the body it is converted into the active compound sulfanylamide, and this sulfanylamide, and this discovery led to further discovery of a very important class of drugs which are called as the sulfa drugs. Now sulfonamides, now a large variety of sulfonamides are available. Sulfonamides, these are sulfide drugs, sulfa drugs containing sulfur, and these sulfonamides, out of which the most common one is sulfapyridine. Sulfapyridine, which has a structure like this. Let us draw the structure of sulfapyridine. So this is sulfapyridine. And this is the most common sulfonamide drug that is very widely used. It is one of the sulfa drugs. So the discovery of sulfa drugs was triggered by the discovery of Paul Ehrlich with his salvarsan drug and also the Prontosil drug, right? So this is about antibiotics. The real revolution in antibiotic came much later than this, much later than Paul Ehrlich, when Alexander Fleming, he discovered the antibacterial properties of penicillin fungus, and that was in 1929, right? So let us mention his name also in this context. So Alexander Fleming, revolution in antibiotics. Due to Alexander Fleming, he discovered the antibacterial properties of penicillin fungus. And as I said, it took him 13 long years to actually isolate this particular drug, to purify it and get it in sufficient amount for clinical trials. So, to try it out, they need sufficient amount. To separate that much amount, it took him 13 long years, right? And we have this Hindustan Antibiotics located at Pimpri, which produces these antibiotics along with even the private sector industry. So, antibiotics are prepared in India at Pimpri, and that plant is called as Hindustan Antibiotics, HA. Not only this plant, even some private sector industries also produce these drugs. Industries, right? Now, what are the basic characteristics for an antibiotic? What qualities must it possess? So, let us list out the characteristic properties of antibiotics. As we have said, their action should be to kill the microorganism or to hinder or inhibit the development and growth of the microorganism. So, let us write the characteristics or characteristics of antibiotics. Firstly, they should kill or inhibit growth of microorganisms. What else? They should be active in low concentration. They should be active in low concentration. That means you should be able to treat that particular disease by taking a very small amount of that particular drug. So, they should be active in low concentration. What else? They should be able to be synthesized by chemical synthesis. So, you should be able to produce it on a large scale so that it is available for the patients. So, they should be synthetic chemicals. They should be synthetic in nature and produced by chemical synthesis. Produced by chemical synthesis. And fourthly, they should be products of metabolism. Products of metabolism. As we have said, they are produced by the microorganisms. So, whether you synthesize it artificially or you get it from the natural antibiotic, it should be a product of metabolism. That means it should be produced in the body as a product of metabolism. So, products of metabolism. So, these are the four major characteristics of an antibiotic. First of all, it should be a product of metabolism, whether you get it from the natural antibiotic or you synthesize it by chemical analysis, it should be a product of metabolism. It should be able to be synthesized on a large scale by chemical synthesis, and it should be structural analog. Structural analog means it should have a structure similar to the natural antibiotic. So, structural analog of natural antibiotic. And it should be active in low concentration. So, taking small amount of it should be able to cure our disease. And obviously, its basic function is to kill and inhibit the growth of the microorganism. So, these are listed as the four major characteristics of antibiotics. Now, depending upon the action of the antibiotic, here we are saying it should be able to kill or inhibit the growth of microorganism. Now, based on its action, these antibacterials are classified into two types. What are those two types? Let us see. Antibiotics. So antibiotics or antibacterials. You can divide them into two types depending on their mode of action. If they are able to kill the microorganism, then we say it is bactericidal. Cidal means able to kill. And bacteriostatic. These are the antibacterials which hinder or inhibit the growth of these microorganisms. So these will kill and these will inhibit the growth. Now our penicillins are bactericidal. So let us name a few antibiotics which are bactericidal and bacteriostatic. Now under bactericidal you have the penicillins. That means they are able to kill the bacteria there, or they are glycosidic amines, ofloxacin. So these are examples of bactericidal antibacterials. They are able to kill the microorganism which is producing that disease, and bacteriostatic which inhibit the growth. Let us write the example for these. You have erythromycin, tetracycline, and chloramphenicol. So these are examples of antibiotics or antibacterials which are able to inhibit or prevent the growth of the microorganisms responsible for those particular diseases. Now based on the action, you can also classify into three categories these antibacterials depending on their range of action. This is depending on the nature of action. You are classifying into bactericidal and bacteriostatic. Now based on the range of action, you have broad spectrum, you have narrow spectrum, and you have limited spectrum antibiotics. So let us see that classification also. So what is that? Spectrum of action. What is the meaning of spectrum of action? That means the range of microbes that are affected by a particular antibiotic, that is called as the spectrum of action. So this is the range of microbes affected by a particular antibiotic. So if it is used over a very wide range and it affects gram positive and gram negative bacteria, then that type of antibiotic is called as a wide range antibiotic, wide spectrum. So you have wide spectrum. This is one category. Second is narrow spectrum. And thirdly, you have limited spectrum. Antibiotic. So what is this wide spectrum? As the name suggests, it is effective over a wide range of microbes. So it can affect gram positive as well as gram negative bacteria. Gram positive and gram negative. So under this you have the examples of different types of penicillins are there, and chloramphenicol is a wide range or wide spectrum antibiotic. So example here you can write chloramphenicol, and you have ampicillin, amoxicillin, Okay, those are examples of wide spectrum antibiotics which affect both the gram positive as well as the gram negative strains of bacteria. Now the narrow spectrum, they will affect only either gram positive or gram negative, only gram positive or gram negative bacteria. Right. Now limited spectrum, its range of action is much smaller and it is effective only against one particular type of, one particular strain of bacteria, one particular microbe. So it is effective against one type of microbe. For example for this limited spectrum is penicillin G. Penicillin G, this particular antibiotic is effective only against one particular strain of bacterium, and those are called as limited spectrum. So based on the action, the range of action, it is called as a spectrum of action. You have three types of antibiotics: wide spectrum, narrow spectrum and limited spectrum. And we have already seen the earlier classification based on whether they kill or inhibit the growth of these microorganisms. There we have bactericidal and bacteriostatic. So these are various ways of classifying the antibiotics, right? And here we should note one very important point, that is before penicillin is administered to the patient, it is very essential to test for his reaction or sensitivity to that particular penicillin. So penicillins are never administered without first testing the sensitivity of the patient, which is also called allergy. Some patients are allergic to penicillin, certain varieties of penicillin. So it is very important to test the sensitivity of the patient to penicillin before it is administered, right? And chloramphenicol, let us talk about chloramphenicol. It is, we have seen it is a wide spectrum antibiotic and it is used for various purposes. So let us see what are the various purposes. One important advantage of chloramphenicol is that it is water soluble and it is easily absorbed by the gastrointestinal tract and it is excreted in the urine. So that is a very convenient property for a particular drug, and this particular drug called chloramphenicol is easily absorbed by gastrointestinal tract and excreted in the urine. Excreted in the urine. Now, this is very advantageous for a drug. It is used in the treatment of typhoid, acute fevers, some urinary infections, meningitis. Meningitis is brain fever, and also pneumonia. So it has a wide range of action and it is a broad spectrum antibiotic. Now let us discuss about the other type, that is analgesics. We have seen the further classification. Now let us talk about what are called as disinfectants and antiseptics. Antiseptics. Now these disinfectants and antiseptics also kill bacteria or inhibit their growth. So they also kill or inhibit the growth of microorganisms. Right? Now they are applied externally, external application. The drugs were taken into the body, but these drugs are applied externally. So external application on wounds, cuts. So we are talking about antiseptics first. Applied on wounds, cuts, and even ulcers. You have ulcers and infected skin surfaces. Infected skin surfaces. The common antiseptics that are used are furosemide and soframycin is very often used. Soframycin, right? Dettol is another very popular antiseptic that is used. It is a mixture of two compounds, that is chloroxylenol plus terpineol. We will draw the structures of these two compounds. So A equal to Dettol. We are all familiar with this particular antiseptic, that is Dettol, right? And bithionol is another antiseptic properties. This compound has antiseptic properties. It is an additive added to soaps. So bithionol is added to soaps for its antiseptic properties. So what are these antiseptics once again? They also kill and inhibit the growth of microorganisms. They are used for external application on cuts, wounds, abrasions or ulcers or any infected skin surface. The very popularly used antiseptics in the form of creams are furosemide and soframycin, and a commonly household name for an antiseptic is Dettol, and which is a mixture of chloroxylenol and terpineol, and this is another additive which is added to soap for its antiseptic properties, that is bithionol. Let us draw the structures of the components of Dettol. As we said, Dettol, which is a commonly used household name for antiseptic, is a mixture of chloroxylenol and terpineol. Now chloroxylenol is having a structure like this. Xylene is a benzene ring with two methyl groups. There is a chlorine also attached, so chloroxylene, and there is an alcoholic group OH. So this is the structure of chloroxylenol. And this is terpineol. This is also an alcohol, a tertiary alcohol here, alcoholic group with a ring, 6-membered ring with one double bond inside. This is having 3 double bonds. The circle indicates it's a benzene ring, right? So Dettol is a mixture of chloroxylenol and terpineol. Mixture of these two gives us that commonly known antiseptic called Dettol. And bithionol is, thio means S. So there are 2 benzene rings attached on either side of S with 4 chlorine substituents and 2 OH substituents. So this is bithionol, which is added to soaps because of its antiseptic properties. So this is about antiseptics, and 2 to 3 one of the best antiseptic compound is iodine. So iodine has very powerful antiseptic properties. Now we know that 2 to 3% aqueous alcoholic solution of iodine is called tincture of iodine. Now this is used in for applying on cuts, wounds, grazings and so on. So that is another example for an antiseptic. Iodoform is another compound which is a powerful antiseptic. And for the eyes you use a mild antiseptic, that is a very dilute solution of boric acid. So let us write those examples also. 2 to 3% solution of iodine, I2. So I said iodine is a very good antiseptic. So 2 to 3% solution of iodine in water plus alcohol mixture is tincture of iodine. You call that as tincture of iodine. And we know we use it for cuts and wounds, right? And you have iodoform. This is a compound of iodine, CHI3, iodoform. This is another example for a powerful antiseptic. In addition to this, you also have the example of very dilute boric acid. Very dilute boric acid. This is used as an antiseptic for the eyes, right? Now, if you come to disinfectants, the same antiseptics itself can be used as disinfectants because their function is the same. Usually, they are applied to inanimate objects like floors, instruments, chairs, furniture, etc. So, there also the activity is the same, that is to kill microorganisms or to hinder the growth of these microorganisms. So, disinfectants are another class of chemicals which are applied to inanimate objects. Like I said, the floors, the furniture, instruments and so on. Now, the only difference is antiseptics only can be used as disinfectants, but in higher concentration. So, the concentration is lower if it is used as an antiseptic, it is higher if it is used as an disinfectant. For example, 0.2, if you take 0.2% solution of phenol, it can act as an antiseptic, whereas a 1% solution of phenol can act as a disinfectant. So, let us write that. What are disinfectants? That is the next class of drugs. Disinfectants. What is the difference between disinfectants and antiseptics? Antiseptics were used by humans to be applied on skin surfaces, cuts, wounds and ulcers. Now we are talking about disinfectants which are applied also externally but to inanimate objects. So the next class is disinfectants. So where are these applied? They also kill and inhibit growth of microorganisms. But they are applied externally, applied to inanimate objects. Inanimate objects like floors, furniture, instruments and so on. Okay, and here as I said, if you take 0.2% phenol or 1% phenol solution, the concentration is different. In lower concentration, it is used as an antiseptic, which we saw earlier. If it is in higher concentration, the same substance can be used as a disinfectant, because the function of both the types of chemicals is the same. So in lower concentration the antiseptic it is used as antiseptic, and in higher concentration it is used as a disinfectant. Similarly, you have say 0.2 to 0.4 ppm of chlorine is also used as a good disinfectant. So chlorine also has germicidal properties, so it is used as a disinfectant in this concentration 0.2 to 0.4 ppm. And similarly, very low concentration of SO2, sulfur dioxide, is also a very good disinfectant. So this is our discussion on disinfectants which are applied externally to inanimate objects only. Usually the antiseptics itself can be used as disinfectants in higher concentration, right, as we saw the example of phenol. And other disinfectants are 0.2 to 0.4 parts per million. ppm stands for parts per million of chlorine, or very low concentration of sulfur dioxide is also a very good disinfectant.